All right, what's going on to all fixed blade knife enthusiasts out there? What's up to all outdoorsmen out there? That's who I think is going to be watching this video. Do I have an absolute beast of a knife, of a tank of a knife to freaking show off to you guys? This is the Top Steel Eagle 107E. They make a D version, they make a C version, they make one with a 12-inch blade. They make ones with that are shorter. The 107E is the one that's actually 7 inches long blade length that does not have a sawback version. In fact, I think it's one of the only versions that does not have the sawback. This one has a plain spine. I'll talk about that in a minute. A couple reasons why I wanted to get this knife is because, well, number one, I'm a big fan of Topps knives. I think they make a great product and good knives. I like how they are all American made. This is actually one of the first models they ever came out with, the Steel Eagle, and again with all their variations, but the original Steel Eagle is the first knife that Topps ever made, so I wanted to get that. The other reason is because every time I try to look up online, they're always hard to find. They always sell out, and I think everyone's kind of on the same page as me. They all want the original. So I'll go into the specs in a bit. Talk about the handle, go around, finish up the blade, talk about the sheath, and then talk about some philosophy of use. The handle is made out of micarta handle scales, good material. The handle is actually very full. It's a very big handle. I have medium-sized hands, and at first I thought it was going to be too big for me, but no, it fits me pretty well. If you have smaller hands, that might be an issue for you. But it's interesting to see Topps' very first type of handle and what they've come up with. They have definitely evolved since then. They make a Delta version of this knife as well, and apparently the handle scales are a little bit thinner, if I'm not mistaken. So look into that if you want to get a smaller handle scales. But for me, the more heavier use that I use this, the more I like this handle. I like how it has the 3 grip function where I can grip it up front to choke up and do some detail work. I have the regular grip right here, and then lastly I can choke up back here and put some weight towards that edge and do some good hard chopping. I like how it has lanyard holds here. I will put a lanyard here one day. The top of it has these jipping right here, top of the knife or top of the handle right here. The thing is, you think that this is going to irritate you as you do heavy chores and chopping away, but it actually doesn't. It doesn't bug me in any way, so it shouldn't deter you. The one thing I don't really like about this is the sharp jipping right here where the thumb ramp is. At first, it was too much for me. In fact, I didn't like it so much. I almost wanted to get a Dremel and grind that away. Now, I'm not going to do that. In fact, the more I use it, the more I get used to it. But that was kind of it was bugging me in the beginning. I'm not the biggest fan of jipping, but yeah, to me that was just too sharp. But like I said, I am getting used to it. Let's talk about the back of the spine. So like I said, this is the only version. The 107E is the only version that does not come with a sawback. There's a couple reasons why I wanted this version. Every time I see people using this knife online, they are never using the sawback. They're never actually using the saw at all. They're chopping away, they're splitting away, they're cutting away, but excuse me, but they're not ever using the saw. Now, apparently, the saw is supposed to be made for notches. It's not supposed to saw through, big, thick logs. It's just not designed for that. It's designed to make notches so that way you can do traps and shelter building. If I'm going to be making notches in any way, I'm just going to be using my knife to just make the notches like that. I know it's supposed to just really make it easier, but once again, I think it's interesting how all the other videos online of people testing this knife out, they're never using the saw. The other reason why I didn't really want to have the saw version, well, number one, because I don't ever see myself using the saw, but number two, I like to get my fingers on the back of the spine to do detailed cutting, and I don't care how your technique is, if you just kind of put your finger on the actual edge itself, it's just something I don't want to do. I don't want to risk cutting my finger on the saw blade. So that's that. It is what it is, and frankly, I don't know why aesthetics. I just like it as a plain back as it is. One more thing that popped into my head. It always dawned on me as I pull the knife out of the sheath, the teeth run this way. They don't run the other way. They run this way. So I was always afraid that the more I pull the knife out of the sheath, that those teeth can catch onto the sheath and wear it out or cut it away in some way. So that's another thing I wanted to be conscious of. Anyway, moving on. The tip right here is very stout, good sized tip. It's not too thick that you can't use it for tasks, but at the same time, it's definitely strong. There's a very strong blade going to the edge. Now, the edge is something to be talked about. So, unfortunately, I think the one and only downside to this knife is that it is not a good cutter. The reason why is because, if I can get this, bear with me. I'm not sure if the camera's going to be able to pick it up, but you got to bear with me. The angle of the edge has such a steep grind. Unlike a full flat grind, which goes all the way and ends right here, or even a high saber grind, this is a very steep grind. Now, it's kind of like a pro and con. On the one hand, it's actually an amazing chopper and just excellent splitter. I really give it a 10 out of 10 when it comes to batani wood. When you're taking a stick and whacking the top of it, and when it comes to splitting wood, 10 out of 10. Chopping, I want to say about 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. But as a cutter, it's unfortunately only about a 4 out of 10. A 5. I'll be generous and I'll give it a 5. But there are much better knives out there that are much better at cutting. This will definitely do the job, and don't let it deter you from not getting it. I'm just simply saying, if you're going to think that you're going to be a little bushcrafter with this, there are other better knives that are better at more detailed cutting. For chopping and splitting, this is definitely your go-to knife. Let's talk about the sheath. Unfortunately, Tops has a reputation for not having the best sheaths. This is more the older version of the company. Now they have done a good amount of I don't know how you say it, effort to give customers a much better sheath than what it used to come with. This is what it originally comes with a very simple nylon plastic insert sheath with some molding on the back. The biggest downside that every customer hates is that it has these Velcro. If you wanted to just keep this, what I suggest is that you get snap buttons, pretty much like what's on here, like what a snap button is. And I suggest that you get this on the Velcro. That way it prevents you from doing what I'm about to show you next. So yes, the sheath, it is what it is, but there are much better options out there. Me, since I'm such a knife snob, what I do is I go the next mile up and I will get a custom sheath made. This one is made by a guy named Seven Rattle Bushcraft. I'll post a link down below to send you to his website. He is a one-man operation, so if you contact him and do business with him, please give him some patience. But I have 3 sheaths. I'm tripping up on my words. I'm so sorry, guys. I have 3 sheaths from him, and they are all excellent. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When it comes to big, heavy knives like this, that I really prefer a dangler system. And then what I do is I even go another step further, and I'll take some paracord and I make 100 little snake knots, get some buckles right there, and then I can attach it to my leg. Once I attach it to my leg with a dangler system, this 18, 19 ounce knife, you don't feel it like that. I mean, of course, you're still going to feel the weight. And by the way, let me stop myself right now. This is by far one of the most heaviest, toughest knives I have in my collection, and I think it'd be very hard to beat this when it comes to the overall toughness. But with that toughness comes weight. Okay, so I talked about it in another video of mine when I did the Longhorn Bowie review, that you still feel that weight no matter what you do. The dangler system will definitely help you out with carrying that weight in the forest, wherever you are, but it's still a heavy knife. But getting back to the sheath, though, I really think that if you're going to have an expensive knife like this, I think you should just go the next step up and get yourself a custom sheath. That way you have exactly the type of attachments that you want. You don't have to worry about Velcro failing on you in any way. And you get something that you really like. And having these two combined, it's an excellent system. I will say, don't get me wrong, I love Seven Rattle Bushcraft. I think he makes a great product. The only thing I'm just kind of critiquing, man, this kind of squeaks. It actually squeaks, and it has to do with the Kydex rubbing up against the metal. So what I did, I originally took some baby powder and thought that would work. That lasted for about 2 weeks. And then now I just got some gun oil and just put a drop down there, wiggled it around, and the sound's going away. But anyway, so what is this knife good for, you may ask? Well, this knife is good for a heavily wooded vegetative area. So I'm not going to be taking this in the desert. I'm not even going to be taking this in high altitude because there's really nothing to cut up there. I'm going to be taking this where there's a lot of wood, a lot of brush to just happen to clear away or do a lot of wood processing. I'm not exactly sure what the history of this knife was. I know apparently it was designed by a Vietnam vet back in the day. I just don't know the history about it. But for those who think that this is a fighting knife, I just really shake my head. This is definitely not one of those designs. I think that this is a heavy wood processing knife, and I think it will absolutely excel as a camp knife and as a backpacking knife. This is where I go, all right, well, if you want to do that, then fine. Like I showed in my other video, where I threw the saw there, I threw a smaller knife, and even a small little pocket knife, how those 3 items weighed less than a knife of this size. So, but as I said before, and I'll say it again, if you're one of those guys who can rock a big blade out in the wilderness and do a good job, then hey, do you know what, man? Thumbs up. I'm trying to think of anything else in the meantime. I should have gone over the basic specs in the meantime, but I think most people who watch this video already know the specs. But to those who don't, it is a 1/4 of an inch thick of 1095 steel. The blade is 7 inches long. The overall length, I don't know what the overall length is, but to me that's not as important as knowing that it's a 7-inch blade. The weight of it weighs at least 18 ounces, but I believe it's 19 ounces. I'll post better descriptions down below. With the kydex sheath, you're looking at about 22 ounces. So it's a big, heavy piece of steel that if you can justify carrying this in the wilderness, then hey, like I said, man, thumbs up. Once again, every single time I do a video like this, I always forget to add something, and so I will post it in the description down below. To anyone that's actually watched this, thank you for watching. And my camera almost just fell. Oops, thank you for watching. Ha!